Next to China, state media there says the Chinese lunar probe has successfully taken off from the far side of the moon to start its journey back to Earth. The Chang'e 6 module landed on Saturday in a volcanic basin close to the moon's south pole and has collected samples of rock and soil. They're expected to be very different from rock formations on the near side of the moon. The Chinese National Space Administration called the mission an unprecedented feat in lunar exploration. The probe is due to return in about 3 weeks' time to a landing site in Inner Mongolia. Well, let's hear now from our China correspondent, Laura Becker.
They're calling this remarkable, historic. It's even trending on social media here. Their channel called Weibo, especially because the mechanical arm that was used to collect those rock and soil samples has put the symbol for Chongguo, which is China, into the Earth on the far side of the moon. They've also planted the Chinese flag on the far side of the moon. Now, the reason why scientists are so excited by this is because it's very, very difficult to control and even land and get an aircraft to take off from the far side of the moon because there's no line of sight from Earth. So what China did was they launched a satellite which was there by April and ready for this mission, and they've used that satellite to relay messages. So for the last 2 days, the Chang'e 6 space probe has been collecting these precious rock and soil samples. Now, the other reason scientists are very interested in this is because in previous samples that you can see, the bit of the moon that you can see, they've collected the samples that look very volcanic, look very like you would see in Iceland or Hawaii. However, it is thought that the rocks on the far side of the moon could contain traces of ice. Now, that would mean there is some kind of source of water on that part of the moon. The reason scientists get excited by that is they are hoping one day to build some kind of space station up there, and it is hoped that perhaps it could sustain life. We're way off that, but right now China believes it's way ahead when it comes to this kind of lunar exploration.
Thanks to Laura for that. Right, we can speak now to astrophysicist Professor Quentin Parker from the University of Hong Kong. Thanks for coming on the programme.
Pleasure.
So what do you make, first of all, of just the challenge that has been successfully completed so far? We'll get on to the rocks and the ice in a moment, but just the logistics of doing what's been done so far. What do you make of it?
Well, it's never been done before in terms of a lunar sample return mission from the far side. Now, China has already landed on the far side. When it did that, with Chang'e 4, that was the first time that's ever been done as well. And now it's the second time they've gone back to the far side, and this time they've done it to bring back lunar rock and soil samples. So that is very complicated. As was said by the previous speaker, there's no direct line of sight, so you have to have a relay satellite called Chukwa, and that basically means magpie bridge. The Chinese love having these interesting and lovely names for their missions. And that's kind of in what's called an L2 orbit around the moon that allows a direct line of sight from the lander to the satellite, from the satellite back to the Earth. So you can remain in communication at all times, which is vital for a mission of this type. So it's very complicated, very challenging technically. They've done it again. And now, just like the Chang'e 5, which is on the near side, they're now going to be bringing back, we hope, lunar rock from the far side rather than the near side.
Right, let's get on to this rock then. How much of it have they grabbed and what's going to happen to it now?
They probably grabbed about the same amount as last time with Chang'e 5, because the Chang'e 5 mission and Chang'e 6 are basically the same in terms of the intent to go to the moon and bring back sample. About 2 kilograms is what they expect to bring back.
OK, and what happens to it now when it's back on Earth?
Well, I mean, assuming they can get it back to Earth first, there's still a few hairy bits to go. They've gone back from lunar, from the surface of the moon into the spacecraft that'll then bring it back to the Earth. They're going to transfer the sample into the module, that re-entry vehicle that actually mustn't burn up in the atmosphere and come back safely to land in Inner Mongolia. And once all of that happens, if it all does happen, because there's pretty scary parts there, then they'll just very carefully, like the Americans did with the asteroidal material that they recovered, carefully unpack and extract the material from within the lander.